Legacy. It's what you pass down to your children, and to your children's children. It's what remains of you when you're gone. Many hope to create it. Many more hope to live up to it. Very few ever succeed. The legacy of this show hopes to be about what Westeros means to us, and what we hope it may mean to a new generation of fans, and the generation after that. Boasting discussions that will endure, passions that will rise, debates that will make the small council jealous. With a combined 44 years of experience behind a microphone, the hosts and guest hosts of this show are dedicated to the fans' experience interviewing anything from Westeros, Essos, and beyond. This group is not the house of a lion, a direwolf, or even a dragon. This is a fraternity, a lineage, a house that endures beyond sigils, and aims to leave a legacy no other podcast has. So it's time to call the banners, for this is the House of the Empire.
Hello, one and all, to the inaugural episode of House of the Empire, broadcasting here on Fandom Empire. Be sure to hit subscribe and that like button so that you find out when all future episodes are dropping and whatever other content you may want to find appealing here on the channel. There's a crap ton of it. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say that. Too bad, too late. And we are in for a wild ride. This is a program and a discussion that has been a long time coming, and we're really excited that you're along for the ride. And joining me on the ride are some very enthusiastic Game of Thrones fans. We have had Game of Thrones discussions on various platforms and in various formats over the years, and we're back for more fun. Joining me for that fun is, he changed his name, Kieran Clegane. I love that, dude. We're getting right into Game of Thrones content with a username like that. How are you?
I'm doing really good. I'm just off a lot of work, but I got a ice cap on the way home, so that should do it. That's pretty. I probably won't sleep later tonight though.
I know that feeling. I had to choose a couple of hours ago whether I was going to go with a Red Bull or a Dr. Pepper, and I chose the Dr. Pepper, so we'll see how long that lasts. Also joining me, it's a longtime friend of mine, even though I've never met him in person, but we have done a ton of Game of Thrones discussions and other discussions over the years, and I'm really excited that this is finally making its debut. He'll be on for just about every episode, and the only episodes I intend on missing will be the ones that I'll be away for during my honeymoons, but other than that, he and I will be staples on this program moving forward. Sean, I don't know about you, but I am really, really excited to get this ball rolling and to be talking about Westeros again after a very long hiatus.
I'm so utterly stoked to watch new Game of Thrones content, even if it's almost 200 years before the events of Game of Thrones. Everything that they've shown us so far looks spectacular, and I can't believe that I think it's 2 months tomorrow from the start of the show, which is just crazy. We're recording this, by the way, June 20th, and the show debuts August 21st. So I'm excited, man. We're almost there. And what's going to happen is we're going to see the first episode, and if we really like it, then it's going to be like, oh, crap, we got to wait another week and then another week. I hope it gets that build up that it's deserving of.
I almost forgot that it was dropping on the 21st. My birthday's on the 23rd, so happy birthday to me. That'll be a really fun way to kick off a birthday week, is by watching some brand new Westerosi content. And yeah, you mentioned it's 200 years in the past, but it's names that we recognize, names that have been dropped in the series, and we finally get to see them on screen. It's big family names like Stark or Targaryen, and we're seeing a few names that I'm not entirely familiar with. So there's going to be a really nice mix of old and new with this program, but we also felt that it was fitting to maybe go back and look at some of the content that has already aired, some of the content that's already out there, so that we can start building the hype and establishing context and getting ourselves even more ready for what lies ahead, even though we're going to be looking back at what lies ahead. It's all convoluted. It's a mess, but we're going to have fun with it nonetheless. Kieran, what would you say is one of the things that has gotten you most excited about this upcoming show that we're going to be discussing?
I mean, I'm really excited to see a show that's based around just one family a lot more. I'm thinking it'll be interesting to see a little bit more of like infighting in between the families, and I know like that's happened in the show. There's been, but it's largely been a lot of like families warring with each other as opposed to inside having a civil war within the family. I think that'll be very interesting. I think that they're going to try and give us some things that we haven't seen before. I mean, obviously, double-digit amount of dragons is going to be a very big deal. I don't know how they're going to pull that off yet. I think the visuals will probably be really great, but I'm hoping that they don't overdo it. I don't know.
It can be a bit of a fine line. I feel like the 3 that we got in the previous show, especially towards like the last 2 seasons, there was a lot of attention on them, and some of the shots looked really, really great. And if I remember, some of them didn't look quite as great, but they've had a few years to kind of refine their methods, I suppose. Sean, do you feel like the gratuitous number of dragons that we're going to get in House of the Dragon could detract from the content of the story they're trying to tell?
I think if the focus stays on the Targaryen Empire, and obviously powered by dragons, but ultimately it's the humans that are behind all the decision making, that the show will be fine. I will say this though: you almost have to be over the top with the dragons in this, because this isn't a day and age where dragons are super duper rare. This is, oh crap, there's a Targaryen family, where's their dragon?
Right.
So there's going to be a ton of them. I do worry, though, what it could look like on screen with a ton of dragons visually, actually. I know Kieran just expressed confidence in it. I'm a bit worried. It's one thing putting the budget into having 2 or 3 of them look really good on screen together. What about 7 or 8 of them, or 10 or 12 or 15? It's going to be interesting, but I think as long as the Game of Thrones is successful because of the actors' performances, they make us believe in those characters. So as long as the new cast can do that, I don't think the dragons will detract from it. Like even in the teaser trailer, we see Daemon played by Matt Smith approach the dragon. I know everyone's gun ho about the dragon breathes the fire out there at the end, but it's like, to me, the best part about that was, even though Daemon's a Targaryen, the nervousness on his face of approaching the dragon there, almost like he's not supposed to be there, was the best part of that little snippet from the trailer. So,
well, you mentioned characters, and that is going to be part of our discussion in just a little while, talking about the characters from HBO's hit classic Game of Thrones and the stuff that kind of helps us establish that confidence that we've got in this upcoming program. It's because of the rousing success that the previous show had. Without the success of the original Game of Thrones, we're not getting House of the Dragon. We're not getting much of anything. And to not only be anticipating House of the Dragon, but also now hearing that there may be another Game of Thrones show in the works is also a really interesting prospect, especially because this one is more of a direct follow-up to the show that we've seen. So we're going 200 years in the past, and then as soon as that's over, it may not be very long before we see something that's happening right after this fan favorite show has concluded. The Hollywood Reporter was one of the first ones on the scene talking about it. I want to toss it around to you guys and get your thoughts on it. But there are reports going around that Kit Harington is probably, most likely going to be reprising his role as Jon Snow in a series that is set after the events of season 8. with a project that could open the door, they say in the article, for surviving characters such as Arya Stark, Sansa Stark, or even Brienne of Tarth. So a Jon Snow centric series. He was kind of one of the centerpieces towards the second half of the series, and it had fantastic viewership numbers during that tenure. And it led to a widely debated final season that everybody was anticipating and everybody had opinions on. Um, is this a smart move? I know I'm supposed to be like the host and supposed to be like really excited and energetic about this, but considering how controversial that final season was, considering how hotly contested some of Jon Snow's decision making was in season 8, is it really a good idea to do a Jon Snow / sequel series, even if we are a few years removed from it? Kieran, your thoughts?
I actually think it's a great idea. I would really love to see a Jon Snow series or centered series, but I would like them to keep it like that. I would like them to not have 10 people's point of view. I would like it to be mostly his point of view. And I mean, he's still a relatively young character there that could still be out doing a lot. I don't know how old he is. How old would he be at that point?
How
But
far in advance are we going with this, Sean? Does it say how many years after?
I would assume it picks up soon after.
I'm going to
honest.
guess it takes place no earlier than 10 years after, actually, just because of if we listen in the finale, Tyrion says to Jon, well, ask me again in 10 years. I think we're going to get a significant enough time jump that is going to allow him to have reunions with certain characters, not all characters.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Because I mean, as much as I love Jon, guys, I got to ask the question, like, you went north of the wall. Theoretically speaking, there's not supposed to be anything left north of the wall. But does north of the wall also extend all the way to west of Westeros?
See, that's one of the tough things to consider, because when you look at the existing map of Westeros, I believe that the place where the wildlings were assembling was towards the very edge of the world, at least the known world at the time. And if the Walkers really did pretty much take out everything north of the wall, then yeah, there's not a whole lot left to view or to see or to do. And that could open the door for him to try and like rebuild a life or start some sort of new quote unquote kingdom north of the wall. Maybe they do encounter somebody who comes from west of Westeros and they present a new threat to the kingdoms or present a new threat to the north, and he has to retreat south in order to, alert the kingdoms of this problem. But at this point, this is all uncharted territory, as we know, and as it's been discussed several times over by several other podcasts out there. The final season isn't from the canon. It's not part of Martin's storytelling. And so anything that comes after that is also going to be original content. And so the door is basically completely open for them to do whatever the hell they want. And that, to me, feels like a bit of a double-edged sword. You could come up with something really, really epic, or you could come up with something that feels a little bit more like the High Republic, where you just come up with some sort of threat that isn't a Sith-like threat, but is still a threat to your existing storylines. I know we're not trying to do too many metaphors that exist outside of Game of Thrones, but that's the closest one that I can come up with, is you've got some sort of a threat that's not the big bad threat of the Walkers, but could still pose a threat and create an interesting storyline. Personally, I'm a little on the fence about doing a Snow storyline. I'm definitely way more excited for what they're going to do with House of the Dragon. I feel like there is a lot more that can and should be done in that storyline, if that makes sense. And I would much rather gain better context to the show that I've already watched than to see something new that's got a 50-50 shot of not being what people want it to be.
One thing that always makes me excited about a show, though, as well, is when the actor really drives the show. Being that Kit Harington said many times he misses the show. He's envious of people who are filming House of the Dragon. He wants to be the character. He really wants to do the show. Um, I think a lot of times projects like that, Ryan Reynolds making a Deadpool movie happen. Um, with the new series Andor that's coming out, Star Wars. I mean, I don't know if that's any good or not yet, but same thing. The actor really wants to do it. Really wants to do it. That's always a plus for me. I feel like they really will push a project like that into being successful. With good acting, which is always really important to me. So,
Yeah, I mean, he was able to carry the series, as I mentioned. Like, it was very much about how he was going to lead the North if he wanted to take the throne. There was a lot that surrounded Kit Harington's character, and he was able to tackle that responsibility pretty well, I feel like. Sean, we've seen stories about a particular character. I'm going to go back to the Star Wars universe one more time. We've had a series about Obi-Wan Kenobi that's been very centric on a single character. Based on the reception of that show and based on how Kit Harington has carried that role, do you feel like this has enough going for it that it could be as popular as what we're seeing with other standalone singular character series?
I think that a Jon Snow sequel has a better chance at being successful with the fan base than House of the Dragon does. To be frank, because it's a character that people already have a relationship with, and well, I'd say half the fan base heavily soured on that character because of actions in season 8 that I don't disagree with. There he is, there, Kieran Spence. Um, I do think that I do think that at the end of the day you can do a Jon Snow driven story, but I'm not convinced they're going to be like, oh, okay, here's the Jon Snow show. It's not called the Targaryen show. It's not even called Fire and Blood. It's called House of the Dragon.
Right.
So I would not expect it to be titled the Jon Snow show or Aegon Targaryen. But there'll probably be some play on his name. I will say this, though. Everyone for years used to think that Obi-Wan Kenobi was going to be, it's the guy in the desert. We're going to get the movie in the desert, or we're going to get the trilogy in the desert, or we're going to get the hermits in the desert in a Disney Plus series. And they went for the big thing because the big thing is what attracts people.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm saying right now, there's out of the people talking about the project, and there's a fair amount of them, everyone seems to think that this is going to involve a whole lot more than just Jon Snow. He's just your lightning rod to get things started. And hey, if you're going to do a Jon Snow show, why the hell can't you do an Arya show, have two different shows running at the same time, and have crossover events? I know it sounds CW, but it's HBO, and an HBO style crossover event. I mean, I don't know if they have the budget for all that, but could be cool.
There's a lot of potential there. I guess the skeptic in me, based on content that I have seen recently, just also believes that there's a lot of potential for things to go wrong that way too. I guess I see where you're coming from with Jon Snow being a fan favorite character. I just feel like with the Game of Thrones moniker attached to it and a Doctor Who alumnus, kind of one of the headliners of the show, I feel like for now, House of the Dragon is the safer bet. But I feel like because that's the next thing coming out, a lot of the Jon Snow series decisions could end up being made based on the reception of this show as well. So there's a lot riding on this program beyond just the regular viewership numbers. It could also be kind of setting the tone for how much Game of Thrones gets produced moving forward. Because you're right, there's going to be competition with Star Wars, with the Andor show, and there's going to be competition for medieval type of content with the Lord of the Rings show on Amazon. So there's a lot of stuff coming out this fall, and House of the Dragon's just one piece of that bigger puzzle.
Not to mention, like, when we're talking about all these, House of the Dragon's a guarantee. We're getting 10 episodes, and it sounds like no matter what, season 2 is a guarantee. So you got 20 episodes of that show locked in no matter what, and probably more. But just because Jon Snow and Kit Harington are attached to a Game of Thrones sequel or spin-off show does not make this a guarantee. I think there's enough smoke that there's fire somewhere, and yeah, there probably is a deal already signed for Kit Harington to return. I absolutely believe that. However, does everybody remember Blood Moon? Oh, wait, what? You don't? That's because it's the first Game of Thrones prequel, the first Game of Thrones spin-off show that didn't just, have a cast. They went and filmed the entire first pilot and spent $80 million.
I remember.
HBO said, this looks like shit. You're all fired. No, thank you. Legit. That's what they did with the Game of Thrones franchise. So despite 8 seasons of being the most successful show probably ever in TV, they still have a quality to hold to. And if it's not going to meet that, then the show's not going to happen.
Very high standards. Very high standards.
That's good. It's good that they show the balls to do that, right? I mean, you can throw shit out there and be like, you know what? We're going to get some views. Or you can make sure you can protect the quality of your shows, and then we know that what we get is going to at least be to their standards really good. And, HBO's standards are pretty much the standard, so...
Yeah, I think that's valid.
As they should be. I mean, a lot of the HBO-related content that's been coming out lately, from what I've heard, has been rather good. I personally have not had a whole lot of time to be able to view a whole lot of content. Like, I just got caught up on another series that's doing weekly episodes, and that was just because I happened to get off work a little early today. Like, every spare moment is going towards something, whether it's podcasting or family or, you guys know what's going on with life, and it's a whole thing. And so to be able to set aside time for television, you got to be really deliberate with what you're going to be investing your time in. And the same goes for listening to podcasts. So we fully acknowledge that you could be doing something else right now, but you're choosing to tune into this program, and we appreciate that, because you're almost a half hour into this crap, and we haven't even talked about much beyond that one article. So I vote we get down to business, unless you guys have any final thoughts on this particular article.
I do. And it's the big one. Everyone's searching for, like, what could the show be about? What's this new thing that would, have Jon do something? And the truth is, you might bookend the show with Jon has to go back to the 6 kingdoms because he's summoned. And then we see him out maybe in Arya's side of the world or whatever. But there's a pretty big question mark that flew off at the end of season 8 that has nobody controlling him and able to do whatever the hell he wants, whenever the hell he wants. And he also took a body with him. I 110% believe that all this is leading to Daenerys coming back. I would never have said that a year ago. Never would have believed it. But after listening to a George R. Martin interview, which you can find on YouTube, I didn't realize how big the rift was between him and Benioff and Weiss. Now, Benioff and Weiss, because of where they were with that deal, and ultimately HBO, and my phone just died, which had my list on it, so that's great. I'm going to have to remember this off the top of my head.
Handwritten notes, bitches.
George R. R. Martin used to write an episode each season, and then he stopped doing that. And then apparently something happened during season 6, and that's where the books go up to the beginning of season 6, I believe, is where the books stop. And something happened during season 6 which would have been their first foray into no actual source material other than bullet point notes from Martin himself, where I guess they started to take some liberties that didn't go over too well. I never used to buy. I know Kieran tried to tell me this once too. I never used to buy into the rift between George R. R. Martin, Benioff, and Weiss, and that Martin's ending would be that different. But now and keeping in mind there's things that happen in the books and characters that are in the books that aren't in the show. So that stuff aside, yeah, I'm not trying to sell it as they're going to try to fix Game of Thrones, but I believe they're going to answer this Drogon Danny thing, and I think John's going to be involved. I don't know where it's leading to, but when you have billions of dollars on the line and Amelia Clark and Kit Harington not overly busy doing other things, I do think we're going there. Just like everybody thought that, no, they won't go to Vader with Kenobi. I'm telling you, I think they're going to do the big obvious thing, even if it takes them a couple seasons to get there.
You think Vader's going to kill Kenobi?
Yes, that's going to happen tomorrow night. Okay.
All right, cool.
And they're going to kill Luke too, and he's just going to be a clone the entire way. But that's another show.
Oh, they'll take a DNA sample and do the
Luke Skywalker. Anyway.
Oh no. Okay. Well, let us know. Let us know what your thoughts are in the comments section, and go follow us on social media. You can find Phantom Empire Now, which is the username next to Sean's lower third there. We'll tell you all of our socials at the end of the episode, but let us know what you think could end up happening if this Jon Snow series gets greenlit, if and when it gets greenlit. But speaking of Jon Snow, I have a feeling he'll end up on pretty much everybody's list that we're about to dive into. For this inaugural episode, we're going to hit you with an obvious one. It's going to be our top 10 Game of Thrones characters. And Sean's going to need a whole bunch of luck to try and remember all 10 of them in the correct order if his phone's dead. But we're going to go 10 through 6 in kind of a clockwise rotation. And then we'll do, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1? Or are we just going to do the Olympic medal style, like bronze, silver, gold?
We can do 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I think we got time for that.
Okay, we got enough time for that. Alrighty. Well, do you need me to lead off so you can try and get to your list, buddy?
Yeah, great.
Alrighty. Well, then I'll start with my 10 through 6, and maybe we won't go clockwise. Maybe we'll have to go counterclockwise, Kieran, just to buy him a little more time. But my number 10 is Arya. I feel like I really enjoyed her arc, especially towards the last couple of seasons. Number 9 is Robb. I feel like he was robbed of time on the show, and I really enjoyed what we got. Number 8 is Daenerys. She kind of had kind of an up and down storyline at times, but I really appreciated what they tried to do with her character, and I love debating with people online about whether she actually was a detestable human being or if she kind of fell to the dark side. Number 7 is Jorah Mormont. I would put him higher. There's just a lot of other people that I also really enjoy their character arcs and their developments, but Ser Jorah is always kind of a scene stealer for me when I'm watching the show. And at number 6 would be the Spider, Lord Varys. I very much enjoy a lot of the conversations that he has and the perspectives that he has, and how consistent he is from the beginning of the show to the end, even if he comes off as a mysterious figure all the time.
Yeah, I love you having Varys in your list. He didn't fit in my list, but I also agree. I think that he is underrated, and a lot of people look towards Littlefinger and Tyrion when it comes to the chess game that's being played, and you don't realize that Varys is pretty much he doesn't get caught very often. I don't think he gets caught, and he gets looked at quite as often. So I think he kind of does a better job than those other two guys sometimes.
The one time he gets caught, though, is the one time that it costs him his life. So it's a pretty fatal consequence when you play this game and you don't succeed at that chess match. So
apparently, you win or you die.
Oh, really? They should put that in the show. That should be a line. It's clever. Aha. Yep. That's the bitch that said it. I didn't care for that haircut, honestly. Like, I understand.
But Queen Karen, that's what we really wanted the whole time.
Yeah, I was about to say that's such a Bob Karen cut. All she's missing is yoga pants and a white mocha frap. But yeah, that's my 10 through 6. Kieran,
Well,
do you?
Starbucks does exist in the series. We know that.
Yes, it does. It shows up at the dinner table in the final season. I had to go and find like those pictures on the internet to show my fiance because she didn't believe me, and I was like, "It's true."
Somehow, like 20 people in the scene, and like several other people around didn't notice that. Anyways,
There's crew members, there's
Yeah.
directors, there's script supervisors. Everybody's looking at the same thing, and somehow a cup of coffee ends up in the scene. That's
that's all right. Gene's guy made it into Star Wars too. My 10 through 6. I didn't really put these ones in much in order because we weren't going to talk about them as much. But I did this more as a characters that I enjoy list as opposed to, like, I didn't put Theon in my list. Who I think Theon is one of the greatest acting performances in the show, but he's not a character who I particularly care for. So my 10 through 6 is Ramsay Bolton, who I think is just amazing throughout the whole show. Even though he's a complete asshole, he's my favorite asshole on the show. I really love Olenna, Queen Olenna. She just has so many lines where she's like, I've been playing this game for a long time. Fuck you. Love it. She's a boss, bitch. Sam Tarley. Absolutely love his character. He's just a very heartfelt type character. He reminds me of another Sam from Lord of the Rings.
See, that's why he didn't make my list, is because he reminded me too much of another Sam. But I get it. I enjoy.
Fair enough. Yeah. No, that's pretty fair. That's pretty fair. Sam is one of my favorite characters in that other show. So,
I was in the same room as Sam the other day.
Sorry?
I was in the same room as Sam the other day.
I've got him a couple times to. I've taken a picture with him, and I have. Pretty cool.
Yeah, it's kind of surreal when you stop and think like, wow, I'm in the same room as all of these people.
Oh,
like,
I do like 2 or 3 cons a year now, so because I kind of work at them now. Sir Davos Seaworth. I think great story. I love how he brings kind of like a blue collar type of character to the show, whereas he, mostly you see people who are high up and they're high in their families and their families are high up among families, but you see someone who came from the streets. He came from he came from a lot less. Anyways, so I think he adds a great and also his scenes with Shireen are amazing, and I mean, I didn't put her in there because she's not a character that's around for too long, but really love those scenes, and they added a dynamic to the show that hasn't really been explored a lot. And Ned Stark, because he's Ned Stark. I don't even need to talk about Ned Stark. Everybody knows. Most people love him for the same reason. Maybe not that one.
Maybe. Well, okay, but
he's still pretty cool.
That'll be a discussion for another episode, but stay tuned for that, because if that actor's still around, I feel like we could end up seeing him in some other capacity as well. But that'll be for another episode. So be sure to keep watching, because we've got a lot of content coming your way. Sean, is your 10 through 6 put together, sir?
Yes, it is. Number 6 for me. Pardon me, number 10 for me.
Just jump right to it. Shit.
Is Davos. Davos is fantastic, and he played great off of Stannis for so many years, and then played great off of Jon as well. And I think the back half of Game of Thrones, like seasons 5 through 8, like Davos' strength in the show really, really shows, regardless of who he's on screen with. 9 for me is Littlefinger. If there's anything that this show desperately missed in season 8, it was Mr. Peter Baelish himself, Littlefinger. 8 for me is Beric Dondarrion. I didn't like the original actor who played him. Did absolutely nothing for me. Had zero charisma whatsoever. And then when they got this fella in, I just actually watched the episode where him and the Hound have their fight, and like every sentence that comes out of Beric's mouth seems so wise and so awesome, and just everything with the Brotherhood without banners is fantastic. I really wish we could have gotten to follow them more, because they kind of just sort of disappear for a few years. Tywin Lannister. I mean, your whole intro at the beginning was mimicking Tywin, and anytime he's on screen, just give me popcorn. I'll watch Tywin talk for 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And then Arya Stark. I think Arya's story is really good from beginning to end, and I'm curious to see what more they could do with the character moving forward.
I love how they left her character as bright and adventurous, but a little bit more wizened to the way the world works. You know, she's still curious by asking questions like what's west of Westeros, but she has a better understanding of just how dangerous the world is. But she also has a way of letting the world know that she's dangerous too and should be reckoned with. And so I do enjoy the way her character ended up, and I do enjoy the way her character started. But there are a few moments in the middle there that I'm not as crazy about, which is why she didn't make it into the top 10. But still a fun character to watch. Okay, well, we'll just keep going in the counterclockwise so that people don't get confused, and we'll go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. My number 5 is somebody else's top 10. I think it was yours, Sean. It's Littlefinger. I really enjoyed his rather deceitful, sneaking around nature in the first couple of seasons, and further enjoyed watching his gradual ascent. It was as if every single plan he put in place was seemingly working. He always felt to be, 2-3 steps ahead of everybody until the one time that he wasn't. And much like Varys, who was my number 6, all it takes is one slip up, one mistake. And if you do that, it costs you everything. And he took a gamble that cost him his life, and it ended up costing some of the quality of that final season. I would agree to that. I missed him in season 8 and was sad to see him go in season 7. So he cracks into my top 5 at number 5, Peter Baelish.
I hate Littlefinger. He's a character that the first time I watched it, like watching it as it was actually on TV, I was like, I did think he was really cool. When I did the rewatch, I was like, who the fuck talks like that?
Chaos is a ladder.
And like, who talks like that all the time? It's like he's doing a Batman voice. It's annoying. I don't know. Anyways.
I think you broke Sean.
Yeah. My number 5 was Brienne of Tarth. I really like throughout this series, there's not very many characters you have who don't get dirty, and I feel like she's the one who comes out of the show the cleanest in the end. Never really compromised her morals too much.
You got dirty with Jaime.
No, yeah, oh, she definitely got actually dirty. I saw that. But yeah, no, I really enjoyed the character. A lot of the important things in a character to me are like, do they do what they say, or like, I like characters who are honorable, and I think my top 5 is mostly honorable characters, and also maybe a couple not so much, but you'll see that really follows along in my list. So I think she's fantastic, and I really enjoy her facial expressions and how she conveys emotions in the show. I think the actress is amazing, which is why I thought it was terrible when they covered her up in a friggin' silver stormtrooper mask. Because she has such a great way of conveying emotion. So
I feel like Zach and I have had this conversation before.
For sure. I'm sure everyone has had this conversation.
Multiple times. I feel like on one of our previous shows, maybe Call the Banners, I feel like I went on a tangent about how Star Wars misused her because she has excellent swordplay and she's a brilliant actress. So
yeah, well, I mean, she's got a great voice, so I saw them being like, oh, let's highlight that voice, but like, she's got very good reactions at conveying confusion, conveying being upset. You know, I noticed that
She locks
rewatching it.
eyes
She's
with Tormund.
sorry.
She has looks of disgust when she locks eyes with Tormund.
Yeah.
I know we didn't get to talk about it earlier, and I don't want to get too far into it now, but the Jon Snow sequel series should mean the guaranteed return of Tormund.
Oh, well, then the flirtation could continue.
All right. Well, that leads
Just
to
Jon, Davos, Tormund, and Brienne on some journey across the world.
I don't need
All right.
another friggin' Power Rangers episode.
Lovely.
Number 5 for me is Zach's favorite Game of Thrones character. I'm sure he has it right up there at number 1. It's Stannis Baratheon. This character is one of the more interestingly written characters in all of television. When you follow the character's backstory, even though we don't get to see it, play out on screen, we get the understanding that, yeah, he was always a bit of an uptight asshole, but he was never the crazed lunatic he becomes in the show. He's almost like the Anakin Skywalker of Game of Thrones. You know, he gets filled with all this nonsense from Melisandre that he's this chosen one. He's Azor Ahai. I know you guys don't like Stannis, but I found his story interesting because he goes from a guy who seems like he has some morals to begin with to, nope, I'm going to kill my brother, to, okay, no, I have some more morals. We lost, to, no, I'm going to commission lighten my own daughter on fire. And obviously it all comes apart for him then. But his story really does mimic the Anakin Skywalker story, but in Game of Thrones. And I like his story, and I like the actor's performance. I seen him in he was in something else Zach and I watched a couple years ago. Can't remember what it was. We watched this medieval movie. You and I went over it, and he was really good in it then. I don't remember what it was now, though. So.
Was it that Netflix movie with Chris Pine?
Yes, that's the one. I don't remember what it was called, though.
Yeah, I can't remember it off the top of my head either, but it's like set after the events of Braveheart. It's
Okay.
like set in England right after William Wallace's time. It's going to come to me at the worst time. Damn it, why can't I think of it?
Is that about the Bruce? The
Outlaw King?
Outlaw King. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was Outlaw King.
Yeah.
Good movie if you haven't seen it, people. Give it a watch.
It's pretty decent. It's like a 7 out of 10.
Yep. It's nothing amazing, but you got a free Saturday night, give it a watch. What do you got at 4, Zach?
At 4, it's somebody that was in your top 10, I believe, as well. It was Tywin Lannister. Some of his quotes and some of his charisma, the way that he carries himself, the way that he is able to put the king to bed without his supper is just amazing. Charles Dance steals every goddamn scene that he's in. You just can't wait to see what he says or does next. And no matter who he's talking to, he commands attention. And what's funny is when he's at like those small council meetings and the king is there, he's still the center of attention. But when he is one-on-one with Arya, that's the only time I feel like Tywin is sharing the scene with somebody. That is the only time I ever see him sharing a scene in the show. Other than that, no matter who he's opposite, no matter how many people are in the scene, you want to find out what Tywin is doing. And I thought it was kind of poetic justice that he ended up getting killed on the toilet. Like, of all the ways to die, that is literally the shittiest way to go. And being the shitty person that he was, the shit father that he was, it was poetic. It was fun to see that happen and then see the repercussions of it. But from when he is at his camp in season 2, I believe, all the way until he dies. He just commanded attention on the screen, and he captivated me.
Yeah, all right,
Don't watch
Dad,
him. Don't watch him in the Godzilla movies, though.
That's my number 4 is Jorah Mormont. Yep, another great character. I know me and Sean very much agree on this character. Same thing, a knight with a code. Obviously, I think it's very interesting when they talk about his backstory, because you always think like, well, this guy, like, how could this guy have done something so bad? And you see that he maybe overcommits a little bit, but the actor is amazing. I think that, I mean, the best thing that happened was we were like, man, he should play Batman. And then apparently he might play Batman at some point. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
He belongs in Star Wars is where he belongs.
Sorry?
He belongs in Star Wars is where he belongs.
Yeah, very much could be in Star Wars, could be in, yeah, I can see that happening.
If Ewan McGregor ever didn't come back as Obi-Wan Kenobi and you wanted to do something like 2 years before A New Hope, I'd be like picky.
Yep. Yeah, no, he's just got a great commanding voice. He sounds wise. He does. You believe the character. You believe what he says, and he's a very interesting character. Even when he gets sent away and comes back, and yeah, I like the character.
Number 4 for me is Tyrion. I'm not going to spend too much time on him because I'm assuming he's on one, if not both of your guys' lists coming up. Tyrion's character journey is really, really amazing when you see where he is in the pilot and the shit he's doing, having sex with several women and just not giving a shit. And a few episodes later, he's pissing off the wall, to having been the hands of a king and a queen and then a king again, essentially on 3 different occasions. I just love the character's journey, whether it's early stages Tyrion or if it's later in the series Tyrion. I did think, though, in season 8, they made him look like a pretty big schmuck at times. He basically lost every battle he was a part of, or made wrong decisions all through the season. But maybe that's just his downside. Maybe that's part of his character journey, because at the end he's sentenced to be the hand of the king with Bran. So I dig the character, and Peter Dinklage is a treasure. So
I remember Peter Dinklage when he was Dr. Bar Sinister in the 2007 movie Underdog. And to see him rise out of those ashes and be able to do things like Cyrano and Days of Future Past, and I even remember him from Elf. Elf came out before that, back in 2003. Like, this man has had quite a journey as an actor, but I think no greater journey than what he was able to do in Game of Thrones. And to continue the conversation, he's my number 3. Tyrion is one of those characters that played the game and played it to the best of his abilities, and he did it really, really well when he played the small council in order to figure out who the mole was, and he did it really, really well when he found his way back into the favor of certain rulers. And his character arc, as far as going from being, what you see in the pilot, to becoming Hand of the King and then becoming Hand of the Queen on the other end of the series, he had quite a literal and physical journey that really helped shape him into somebody completely different by the end of the show. And I felt like one of his best moments didn't have anything to do with words that he spoke, but was when he finally decided that he had enough, and he drew the line in the sand, and he took off his Hand of the Queen crest and just dropped it on the stairwell. That was his breaking point. That was when he was done, and he didn't care about the consequences. He just dropped it. And to drop everything that he'd worked for over several seasons was so poignant. And yeah, I really love where his character ended up.
Want to hear something interesting? He's not on my list.
Wow.
Wow.
I love everything that he does as Hand of the King, and I do not like his character very much at all as Hand of the Queen. Think that he's great. I think that he's great everything he does in Westeros. I think as soon as he leaves Westeros, he becomes a way less interesting character to me. I didn't. And yeah, a lot of it had to do with the season 7, 8 stuff where, yeah, he kept saying, oh, you should do this. And then whatever he did failed. It didn't seem like they really knew what to do with the character in those seasons, in my opinion. And he just thought my last watch through, he was way less effective to me. Like as a character, I was way less interested in his scenes when I knew kind of what was going to happen. The actor's fantastic. Yeah. I mean, he's great in Elf. But
He must
Yeah.
be a South Pole elf.
but I just yeah. But yeah, just it seems like his arc is super compelling to me. What and then he kills his dad. Great stuff. When he's being tortured, when Joffrey hates him, when everyone fucking hates him because he, like ruined their family, and he's the black, he's the black sheep of the family, and all that stuff I thought was great. When he got shipped off, I was interested to see how he was going to try to get revenge back on his family and whatever, but just wasn't as interesting my last go through the show. So, he didn't make my top 10, which was, I thought, really interesting when I lined it up.
So, who is next in your top 5 then, sir?
Jon Snow. Jon Snow, obviously, very big character. Everyone, think, like, to me, he was the center of the show, and they just slowly built it into being his show. I feel like they did like a bait and switch where, like you kind of thought that Robb Stark was going to be leading the Starks and bringing, and following in his father's footsteps. And then in the end, I thought like it slowly switched to this guy who was fucking way north of the wall. Not going to be anything that interesting except a side story. And then he carried on kind of the legacy, talking about lots of what his father taught him and making those really hard decisions that Ned had to make in the beginning, and being tormented by duty and just doing what he thought he needed to do as opposed to what he wanted to do. Always trying to lead people properly, even though he's kind of a reluctant leader. I do really like the acting performance. I don't think it's the strongest acting performance on the show, but I do really like the character, and I feel like he is a lot of the moral center of the show. So he's kind of the character you want to cheer for. And honestly, a lot of times, people like don't want to follow the character that they're supposed to cheer for. They're like, well, I like this other character. A lot of times I cheer for the character I'm being told to cheer for. I'm a good sheep sometimes.
I love Jon. Jon's great. Jon's story's great, and I think really early. I mean, if you were into the books, then you already knew that the Song of Ice and Fire is really meant to be about Jon and Dany, and the show does a decent enough job doing that, following both of their journeys. Just Jon's takes him somewhere where it's completely removed from everything else. So it's a good thing that you did have everything going on in King's Landing, because it made the show feel more complete. But number 3 for me is the character that I think has the best character arc in all of Game of Thrones. It's Jaime Lannister. Think about where this character starts in the pilot, to his fight against Ned on the streets, to obviously him pushing Bran in the pilot's a big one. This dude he kills people while he's imprisoned, is quite possibly the biggest piece of shit in this show for the first couple of seasons. And then we see him lose his hand, and between that and I think more importantly, his relationship with Brienne, the character's development is just wonderful. We go on this journey of what it's like to be, a really not necessarily a complete shit human being, because as he tells Brienne, like, he legitimately did kill the Mad King, not out of, oh, hey, I want the throne, out of, if I don't do this, we're all going to die, you know? And I think Ned was always a little hard on Jamie. And I know some people are like, oh, well, Jamie's arc is terrible because he goes back to Cersei in the end. But to me, I look at it as, hey, here's this guy that evolved so much as a character that he goes from, you know, point A to point Z, to, like, he's battling the White Walkers at the end, you know, during the long nights, and he's giving it his all, even though he only has one hand. To, even despite all of that in his journey, he falls to what some of, you know, a lot of humans fall to, is you go through this journey, you get over your addiction, and then sometimes you falter. And when he faltered this time, it cost him his life. So I love that character. I love its journey, and I'm always feel like I'm most invested in Jamie's journey during Game of Thrones.
Yeah, you and I usually butt heads when it comes to Jamie. I respect the perspective, even if I don't agree with it. But I do enjoy watching him fight Brienne in season 3. I feel like that's kind of one of the turning points for his character, because up until then he talks a lot of talk and is usually able to also walk the walk. And when he has that humbling encounter on the bridge, I feel like that is one of his turning points, when he realizes maybe he can't do it on his own. Maybe he does need some help from others, and he's able to find it in the form of the person who just bested him. So in that perspective, I do get where you're coming from, and I respect it. For me, number 2, it's Kieran's. Number 3, it's Jon Snow. I too really enjoy, from where he ended up in the first couple of episodes to being hailed as the King in the North. There's just so much about him that is fascinating to watch, and the behind the scenes stories and some of the things like we talked about when we were talking about the standalone. There's just so many things about Kit Harington as a person who has embraced the role so well, and I mean, the Battle of Hardhome, the Battle of the Bastards, like there are just great hand to hand moments for him there as well. So it's just a great all around character, and it's one of the things that kind of helps keep me going during my rewatches, because he's one of the few characters that I know is safe, and it's okay for me to get attached to him again because I know he's alive by the finale.
I think it's cool that you know, he's reluctant in leading, and everybody like rallies around him and makes him king of the North. And I feel like that's how the audience feels. I feel like the audience rallies around Jon and says, like, that guy should be king. And it's the same thing that people are doing in the show, are being like, that guy should be king. I mean, I don't know if he has a claim to it because he's a bastard, but... And that's what the audience is doing too. They're like, I don't know if that guy can be the king by the end, but I like that guy. So.
Right. It would help to unmute yourself, Sean.
One of the most emotional moments in Game of Thrones for me is when Bran goes back with the three-eyed raven. He's watching at the end of season 6. He's watching some of the events unfold with baby Aegon, aka Jon, and we get that transition morph from the baby's face into Jon's face, which for like non-diehard fans who knew nothing about the books, that was the specific moment that confirmed who Jon was, for the most part anyway, part of his lineage. And like the musical note into the Stark theme there, I've seen the episode like 4 or 5 times, and every single time, like the hair on my arm stand up. And Jon's also my number 2, by the way. I don't think Kira's done his 2, but Jon was my 2.
Well, my 2 was Jamie. So when we talked about Jamie as well, I do actually. Jamie and Jon Snow are both super close for me in their story arcs. I do really like Jamie's story arc as well. I love when people complain about the fact that he died at the end, so like not in a fight or whatever. But I think this is a very realistic show, so like not everybody dies in a sword fight. Not everybody, like not all great historical characters die greatly either. So I think it's very realistic in that way, that not everybody just gets a fucking amazing end or a super great. Like I feel like that's kind of on par for Game of Thrones, for people to die and not, doesn't have to be the most significant event what they did in their last moments. So that's a knock on where the character's story goes for a lot of people, but I think him being buried under the castle with his sister and lover, like.
I mean, Bran even writes in
But
in the book that he died protecting his queen.
yeah, I thought that was all right, and yeah, it was an interesting story. It was like, I think some people get upset when they're like, oh, it's going here, and then he's gonna fall in love with her, like he's gonna fall in love with Brienne or whatever. It's like, but we're not getting a Disney story, we're getting an HBO story. Like, we're getting something that might happen in real life, which is, yeah, people falling back into their addictions, and or falling, not even just addictions, we mentioned like an addiction. I don't know if he's just addicted to that WAP or what, whatever. But he's like, yeah, I like that it's more of a realistic story. Not everything goes the Disney way. So he got trapped, and he got trapped under some rubble. So, but sorry, the difference is, I do think that the actor for Jaime, I don't know any of the actors' names, I do think that he puts on a better performance than Kit Harington. I think that that's what kind of breaks the tie for me, is that I feel like the acting performance is a little bit higher, a little bit.
Nikolai Coster-Waldau, I believe is his name.
Oh fuck, I'd never remember that.
Yeah, he's brilliant, utterly brilliant. Zach, who took it home for you, bud?
For those of you who know me, it really shouldn't be much of a surprise who's going to be claiming the top spot on the podium. It's the character that got me invested in the show in the first place. And even if he was only around for one season, he left a lasting impression on the legacy of the rest of the series just by his surviving descendants that ended up making an impact on Westeros. It was the way he raised them that helped shape the rest of the show. So top spot for me is Eddard Stark. He was an honorable man who did not know how to play the game. All he wanted was a quiet life with his family, and he wasn't given that. But he was also a soldier who did his duty right up until he wasn't able to do it anymore. And I love that portrayal. I love that it's a very realistic perspective that even really, really bad things can happen to a good man. And it was his character that got me interested in the show, and it was his death that helped me realize nobody was safe in this show. Still didn't prepare me for the Red Wedding, but it helped me realize that there's no safety in this show, and it helped me buckle up for a wild ride. So, Ned Stark, number one.
I mean, I think we could probably do a whole episode on Ned down the line when we're looking for an episode to do, because like his character's legacy lives all through the show, right? So, and I mean, we're about to do an episode where we're going to talk about Ned again. So, anyways, it's Kira's number one, right? Your number one.
Yes. Yeah, my number one, which is the like super undebatable, not even close. Like I had a hard time. Probably 10 through 2 was hard to figure out what it is, but number one is definitely the Hound, 100%. It's my favorite part of the show, by far. Like, I don't know. I love his ending. It's the only thing in season 8 that a lot of people. I don't know if they did this right. I wish they kind of did that. There's a lot of things that I'm fine with because I will. I'm not one of those guys who's not gonna watch season 8. Well, fine, whatever. Screw that. No, it's pretty good still, but I love his ending in season 8. I love his whole journey. I love the portrayal. I love how much like he's another character that does go really deep and does have a lot of twists and turns. But in the end, I think he knows who he is, and he's just like I think he was fine with them both dying too. I think he was like, let's just fucking end this terrible, shitty bloodline. Let's just fucking do away with it because we're terrible people. Obviously they were raised to be terrible little shits, and then grew up to be giant fucking shits. And he did seem almost like in the beginning of the show that he was just going to be a big henchman, which is kind of what the Mountain ended up being. But no, he ended up doing quite a bit and doing quite a bit of good things, and realizing the things that he did, like the house where he leaves and comes back, and they find that the people are dead, and you can see what he had to think about that. Taking care of Arya, but also he wasn't super noble in that either. Everything he did, he kind of knew who he was. I think instead of changing who he was as a character, he kind of figured out who he was, and then just had to make up with that. Had to understand, this is who I am. Maybe I can be a little bit better, but I am who I am. So, and he says cunt like 100 times.
Yeah, it's definitely his favorite word.
It's awesome. He kills a man over a chicken.
I love the Hound. I just don't know if I ever loved him enough to be in my top 10 favorite characters, but I've never ever had a single issue with the character. And
for me, it's like
watching the character.
It's like 10, 2, number 1. Somewhere on my roof.
That's cool. My number 1 is Jorah Mormont. I get it. He's not a main character in the show, but he's the supporting character to Daenerys, basically from start to finish. Love his character. He's kind of like the Obi-Wan Kenobi in some respects of the Game of Thrones world. Maybe not the selling slaves portion, but I just love the character. I love Ian Glenn's performance, and I love the way the character went out. Guy gets stabbed 7 times by the army of the dead, and still plants the sword on the ground, gets himself back up. And Emilia Clarke has this really awesome moment during that where she's just kind of how the hell is this dude continuing to get up and fight for me? And obviously he ultimately succumbs to his wounds, but I feel like he was going to keep getting up until those walkers fell. So Jorah Mormont, I love his story from beginning to end, a proof that not all redemptions are the same, but some mean more than others.
Did he die? He died in the battle of Turn the Tint Up, right? Where you turn the tint up on your TV until you can see what's happening?
I would say you have a bad TV. Yeah.
He worshipped Daenerys from start to finish, and he loved serving his queen. He loved providing counsel, and he never begrudged her decisions, and he always backed her up at the end of it all. And he's a fine example of how to serve your royalty no matter what, and that is the mark of honor. So I do enjoy his story, and I look forward to seeing him some more during my rewatch. I had to push pause on my rewatch because the fiance wanted to get caught up on Stranger Things. So once we do one, we'll go to another, I suppose. But hopefully, we'll all be caught up in time for House of the Dragon, August the 21st. We're going to be doing a lot of content between now and then in order to get you all ready for that. And then we'll be doing breakdowns of every episode as soon as we humanly can after those episodes air. But I think that's going to do it for this inaugural episode of House of the Empire. Thank you all for tuning in. Guys, thank you for being a part of this evening. Kieran, where can the folks at home keep up with stuff outside of this podcast in regards to your content?
I mean, I'm still on Facebook, but that's about it. Oh yeah, I don't do that show anymore.
It's just done.
No, I'm joking. It is going to start back again very soon. I've actually been slowly talking to some of my fans or supporters or whatever you want to call them, and they were all asking about it. And it's coming back very soon, probably within a month.
That's awesome. Looking forward to it. I saw a couple of Rick and Morty cosplays actually at the last Comic-Con that I went to, and it made me think of you. So
I have yet to do that, a Rick and Morty cosplay, but it's got to happen eventually.
it was pretty rudimentary. Like it was like a teal jacket with a lab coat, but I still recognized it. So it was pretty cool. Sean, there's a ton of stuff happening here on the channel. Can you bring the folks up to speed on what kind of content they can be looking out for here on Fandom Empire? If you unmute yourself.
Bloody hell. There's some sound issues going on here right now. No, nothing. We're quitting. This is the last episode of anything ever. Good night.
This
Bye.
is it. This is it. We're quitting.
No, you can check us out on Patreon, patreon.com/Fandom Empire. You can support the channel over there, doing all sorts of cool things there regarding various different things, mainly Halloween. But we want to start doing watch-alongs again. It's something that everybody requested, so we might do a watch-along a month over on the Patreon. So be on the lookout for that. And you can check the Fandom Empire show out tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Eastern. Got a lot to talk about. And then I think Wednesday evening we're doing a Obi-Wan Kenobi roundtable. I don't know why I'm saying all this now, because by the time you see this episode, all this stuff will have happened a week prior. Patreon.
Cut that out.
Empire. And yeah, at Fandom Empire now, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Carrier Pigeon, you name it.
Carrier Pigeon. Now that's one I haven't heard from in a long time. Long time. As for me personally, just go hit up Zach the Voice on all those different social media platforms. Pretty much all the primary ones: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Venmo, whatever you want to use. And then and well, that's not a primary. That's a secondary, tertiary at best.
I gotta go.
But yeah, we've also got the Cretaceous cosplayers. That's a new Facebook page for my buddy Mondo and I, who do Jurassic Park cosplays. I usually go as Alan Grant, but I actually just purchased a new costume that's going to be part of the rotation. And then my dad actually resembles John Hammond quite a bit. And so last Comic-Con, we dressed up as all three of those. And I've also got an inflatable T-Rex that I'm trying to stick somebody into so we can kind of round out the lineup, if you will. But yeah, go find the Cretaceous cosplayers on Facebook. And then you can also find the IPC podcast here every other week. We just did a discussion on Jurassic World Dominion, and we've got some other really great conversations on the horizon for this summer. I think that includes Lightyear, it includes Kenobi, it includes Thor, Love and Thunder, and I think the final season of Jurassic World Camp Cretaceous. So there's a lot of really cool and various content going on over there. And then we'll be back for more content here on House of the Empire in the very near future. So that'll be one of the other main places that you can keep up with me. But guys, this was a really fun episode, and it's a great way to kick things off. And I'm looking forward to the second episode. Thanks to all our patrons that help make this channel and this show possible. Be sure to hit like and subscribe so that you can find out more about all of the different content that's going to be going on here on Fandom Empire. But I think that may do it for this first episode of House of the Empire. For Kieran and Sean, I'm Zach saying thanks for tuning in. We'll see you for episode 2, but we'll see you next time when the Empire returns.
Legacy. It's what you pass down to your children, and to your children's children. It's what remains of you when you're gone. Many hope to create it. Many more hope to live up to it. Very few ever succeed. The legacy of this show hopes to be about what Westeros means to us, and what we hope it may mean to a new generation of fans, and the generation after that. Boasting discussions that will endure, passions that will rise, debates that will make the small council jealous. With a combined 44 years of experience behind a microphone, the hosts and guest hosts of this show are dedicated to the fans' experience in reviewing anything from Westeros, Essos, and beyond. This group is not the House of a Lion, a direwolf, or even a dragon. This is a fraternity, a lineage, a house that endures beyond sigils, and aims to leave a legacy no other podcast has. So it's time to call the banners, for this is the House of the Empire.